What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another video here on the Review and Preview Sports YouTube channel. My name is Tom Scavetta, joined by a very special guest of mine, and he is a resident Tampa Bay Lightning fan of From the Stand Sports, Brayden McArdle. Brian, hello, good morning. How are you doing? Any jittery feelings heading into tonight?
Hi, Tom. Good morning to you as well. We are kicking this off early as we couldn't get it filmed last night, unfortunately. But yes, the game is tonight, game one. In previous 2 years, yeah, the jitters were there. But you win 2 cups, and I feel spoiled almost. So I think even if I thought we were going to lose this series, I don't think I would be nervous. I think most fans feel the same way because we've gotten those last 2 Stanley Cups. So, but really excited. This is a crazy good matchup for the Stanley Cup Final. So I'm super excited to watch these. What'll probably be 7 games.
You would hope, right? Because hockey playoffs are just absolutely insane. Now,
right.
Can you talk about the Rangers series a little bit and what was going through your mind down 2-0 against the Rangers, down early in game 3? Is it like an oh no moment, here we go, or did you feel fine, like Tampa Bay would be able to maneuver their way back to the Stanley Cup Final?
Yeah, I mean, personally, I felt fine, which, I don't want to diss the Rangers team at all, but the way it happened, I think we were almost disadvantaged in the fact that we swept the Panthers, because the whole, rest versus rust thing, I think really hurt us. I can't remember I think we were off for 9 days or something. And yeah, you get a lot of rest. If you're injured, that helps. We weren't really injured at the time, so I don't think that benefited us. And at the same time, you've got the Rangers who are still getting, high class hockey games in, whereas, we're doing skate arounds, which will never really be the same as, full-time game action, or especially not, NHL playoff level hockey. So, I think the rest just hurt us. I wasn't expecting us to lose both of the first 2 games, so I guess it was put people a little on edge. But yeah, Vasi figured it out by game 3. He had that high blocker side that was not working at all. You guys exploited it for both 2 games, and then something just kind of clicked halfway through game 3, and everyone settled down, and they took care of business. So.
Yeah, I mean, and I spoke about it with Hank last night in our other video, but it was the 5-on-5s that killed us. And Igor, you talk about the Rangers exploiting the blocker side. The Lightning exploited the 5-hole. That's Igor's weakness as a goalie. So job well done. I know Barclay Goodrow, former Lightning member on our side now. Ryan McDonough, former Rangers. Several former Rangers have been on the Lightning over the years. And I've got to say I'm a little disappointed, but I'm happy it was to you guys rather than, not to sound too cliche there, but I don't necessarily mind that the Lightning are back in the Stanley Cup Final. And the only player of significance used were without throughout almost this entire playoff was Brayden Point, right? There was a lot of rumors about him potentially coming back for game 6. He couldn't do it, but you guys are back in the Stanley Cup Finals for the 3rd consecutive year. And folks, remember, before we kind of dive into the meat of this episode here, make sure to go check us out on all of our social media platforms if you haven't already, at Review and Preview Sports on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, the Anchor, Catch Our Audio, and also our YouTube channel and our new TikTok at Review and Preview. So I'll leave this up scrolling across the screen here for about a minute or 2. But Brian, game 1 is tonight. This final features 2 of the 3 finalists for the Norris Trophy, which goes to the best defenseman during the regular season. You got Victor Hedman on your end, and you got Cale Makar on the other end. I mean, talk to me about Victor Hedman and what he's meant to this Lightning team.
Yeah, Hedman has been such just a rock on that defense. I mean, the awards, the accolades, I think everyone is aware of at this point. But he's just, over the past 4 or so years, his play has become, I don't really know the word, but like a steady, like I don't think I've ever seen Hedman look nervous, like even for 2 seconds in the last 4 years. If he makes a mistake, which is very, very rare, it's instantly out of his mind and it's corrected. I know he's sort of being a mentor to Sergachev, who he's talked Sergachev up and saying, Serge will be the same way in the coming years, which you would hope for. But even for someone as good as Sergachev, he makes, so many more mistakes than Hedman, which, I mean, it's got to be close to, I could count on probably one hand the amount of mistakes I've seen Hedman commit all season. So he's just been an absolute rock. And then once you get into the offensive zone, I mean, that shot is just incredible. He's in, I think the last 3 years, he's been in I don't know what they call it, but the fastest shot contest for the NHL All-Star game. I think he won it this past All-Star game even. So that's always a nice weapon to have once you get into that offensive zone. He's just, an incredible player. But, Makar is, sort of a changing of the guard. You hope it doesn't happen for another few years, but Makar could be that guy that takes over as Hedman ages out later in his career. I think he's leading the Avs in playoff points as a defenseman for this playoff series, which is just insane, especially for how deep that Avs team is. So, yeah, it's going to be there's crazy good matchups all across the board in this series, but that's definitely going to be one of the favorites to watch.
Absolutely. Speaking of Makar, that exact number is 22 points in the playoffs alone and set an Avs franchise record for a defenseman with 86 points. And this is a team that also features the likes of Gabriel Landeskog, Valeri Nishchukin, Devin Toews, Andrei Burakovsky, Nazem Kadri, and I mean, that's a solid core. And of course, Mikko Rantanen, who is their leading scorer, and Nate MacKinnon, not too far behind their second leading scorer. So Rantanen and MacKinnon are like 1 and 1A on this team. And then we just went over several names throughout their core. And this is a team, Brian, the Avs, that, they've been a little bit of a slouch the last couple of years in the playoffs, but this year they finished with the best record in the West, 119 points overall, had a dominant run to get to the Stanley Cup Finals. They swept Nashville in the first round. I mean, you kind of forget Nashville was even in the playoffs. That's how pathetic it was. They beat the Blues in 6, and I'll give the Blues some credit. They gave them a fight, and then they swept Edmonton in the Western Conference Final. Granted, Mike Smith is, no offense to Mike Smith, but he's a little past his day in the NHL. But, I mean, look, there's lots of pressure. I mean, this is a talented core who has made it past the second round. This is the first time they've made it past the second round for the first time since 2002. So This is a team that hasn't been here in a while. I guess my question, Brian, is do you view this for Colorado as a series where they might start off on a similar track that the Lightning did against their Rangers, haven't played in over a week and trying to get some rust off? Or do you think Colorado is a team that's just going to put on the Jets once the puck is dropped?
Yeah, I mean, I hope so. I think most of our fans hope so, just because we had to experience it for those first 2 games against the Rangers. And I think it, like I said, you're not getting elite hockey for over a week. I mean, you do want some rest, obviously. They've got some injuries. They're hoping Kadri comes back, obviously. But too much rest, it's just, I mean, you need that elite competition to keep you going. So they've had quite a long time to rest because they've been running through. I mean, I don't want to call who they went through weak, but I think the path was definitely nowhere near as tough as the one we had here in the East. I mean, no offense to a team like Edmonton, who's very good, but I mean, they were no match for the Avs at all. So yeah, I mean, their team's extremely quick, extremely fast. I do hope they're a little sluggish because of all this rest that they've had over the past week, almost week and a half now.
Yep. It has helped them in a way, though. You mentioned the injuries. They've also lost Sam Girard, another defenseman. Obviously Evander Kane with that hit on Kadri, and then the goaltender Darcy Kemper suffering an upper body injury. back in game 1, he missed games 2, 3, and 4. So they had to go with Pavel Francouz, who was shaky. Despite winning games 2 through 4, I thought he was a little bit shaky. Even if Darcy Kemper is healthy, Brian, is he going to be able to match up against Vasilevskiy? Because this guy is just unmatched. And for me, at least, again, Colorado's a juggernaut offensively, but they cannot match the goaltending that the Lightning have. No team can. We saw in what my opinion is now the second best goalie in hockey, at least for this season, and Igor Shesterkin could not match Andrei Vasilevskiy and bowed out in 6 games.
Yeah, I mean, I said 2 minutes ago, literally, that there's so many great matchups, positional matchups in this series, but I don't think goalkeeper is one of them. Yeah. He's got to be, if he's not there, he's got to be approaching GOAT status as a goalkeeper. I mean, the accolades, he's, like you said, he's broken so many records. If he gets this cup, it'll be 3 in a row with insane save percentages. I think before the Rangers series, he was 18-0 in after a loss.
Yeah.
Excuse me. After a loss, he was 18-0 in playoff games, which is, I mean, still 18-1 is just as insane almost. And he had that, I think it was a 9.95 save percentage in a series clinching wins for us, that's 1 goal and over 200 shots. So it's just, I mean, you say numbers like that, and those are video game numbers.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, just between the pipes, you couldn't hope for anyone better. And I think also that something that plays to our advantage is the fact that between Kemper and Francouz, the fact that I wouldn't say they're exactly even in skill level, but they're fairly close. Like Francouz is the guy who you could definitely rely on to put between the pipes for them if you needed him to be the number one. But I think when you get this deep and the guys are that close, it can hurt you. The coach might start overthinking things. Say Kemper has a bad game, like a really bad game. Let's just say game 2, and the series is even coming into Tampa. Are they then thinking, all right, we should make a switch? What does that do mentally then to Kemper? Thinking he's getting benched. What does Francouz think about that? He's getting thrown into the meat grinder. So yeah, I think things like that also play to our advantage. So the goalkeeper advantage definitely is going to be one of the bigger things for us if we go on to win the series.
The one point you alluded to before that I also think plays into your advantage is the path, right? You won a hard-fought series against the Leafs, who a lot of people thought this was the Leafs' time to win a playoff series. But, I mean, I didn't have them winning that series. I don't think you guys had the home ice advantage for any series. You guys were the lower seed in every single series you played in. Pardon me. Beat the Leafs in 7. You swept the President's Trophy winners in the Florida Panthers. It's the second straight year the Lightning have knocked out the Panthers in the playoffs. And I remember when the Lightning were the President Trophy winners and Columbus did their thing, and then they overcame that 2-0 deficit against the Rangers. So, despite having the much tougher path, Brian, what would you say is the key to finishing this off? Do you think that path will better the Lightning in this series? Because Colorado, it's tough because I personally, it's hard because I feel like Carolina was the best team in the East all year long.
Mm-hmm.
And
I agree.
I don't know if the Lightning would have been able to fend them off if they got past the Rangers. You know what I'm saying? And I think the Lightning, I'm not going to say they got lucky. They won the series fair and square, but my opinion's in the minority. I think having the Rangers was better than having the Hurricanes, because as young as the Canes are, the Rangers are even younger. The Rangers were even younger, and it showed late in that series. So again, back to the question, what's the key, Brian, to finishing this mission?
Yeah, well, just quickly on the Hurricanes, I want to say just from the past episodes that I jumped on and got to comment with you and Hank talking about the Rangers, I remember very specifically asking Hank to have you guys beat them because at that time I can't remember how many points ahead of everyone they were, but it was just astronomical the lead they had. And I was like, "You Rangers, please put them in their place, Hank." Because I know I always see Hank going to the games. I was like, "Put some bad juju on them." And yeah, I think we were definitely, I don't want to say lucky, but I agree. I think it would have been a tougher matchup for us had we had to play the Hurricanes. So it was fortunate for us in that sense. As far as this series, I mean, just keep it business as usual. The main core of these guys have been here 2 years in a row, and I think, not to say that there'd be no pressure, but when you go through the process of a Stanley Cup, like the media days, just the nerves leading up to it, it can get to you. Guys, won't put on a face that they're nervous, but this is the Cup. It doesn't get bigger than this. So Colorado's going to have to deal with that. Their last Cup was in 2001. They haven't really been a serious threat since then. They've kind of built their team around like being a one, or sorry, not a one win, like a first round winning playoff team, but nothing more than that. Which is nice if you're, an Avs fan, you get to go to a playoff series, but I don't think they've ever really had a team that could challenge until, this most recent project they've had in the last like 4 or 5, I think since 2017 is when they started this kind of rebuild with all these draft picks. So, the pressure is all on them. Yeah, it's a chance at what people call like a dynasty 3 in a row winning Stanley Cup team for us, but these guys have already 2 cups. Like if they lose, they'll be sad. But I mean, this core has been together for so long and gone through it for 2 years in a row. This is now the 3rd year, and I think just to me, I think the difference in pressure is going to help us tremendously. So, keeping that focus is going to be key, and I think we do. I think Colorado might be a little bit timid, and that gives us a chance to maybe steal one of these first 2 games in Colorado.
It's funny. Hank was at that game 6 in Tampa, by the way. I don't know if you knew that. Hank went down Saturday morning, and I thought the Rangers were well represented at game 6, but there's nothing like walking into Amalie and going through that gauntlet there. But that's a great crowd, and I've got to say, he also mentioned to me this on the side after the series is over. And I don't know why, but he mentioned that no team has three-peated in sports since the Shaq and Kobe Lakers from 2000 to 2002. The last to do it in the NHL was, we like to refer to them as the Fish Sticks and the New York Islanders. It's never been done in the cap era as well, now with the salary cap. What worries you most? I mean, you mentioned you think Tampa will probably pull this out, but what worries you the most that might keep Tampa from pulling off this three-peat?
Everything. I mean, Colorado's very, very good. That team is really deep. The stat that I thought was kind of most dangerous to me in the last series, 16 of their 20 skaters recorded a point against Edmonton, who's no slouch. So when you've got your entire team producing for you, that's definitely helpful. MacKinnon, obviously, he next level elite player. He's super quick. He kind of reminds me of how Kucherov was in that 1920 season for us. Which I think Kucherov has sort of adapted because of injuries and stuff. He doesn't go for the flashy play anymore. But MacKinnon's in his prime, and he can still do that and just take complete control of the game for them. You got McCarr, who we talked about earlier, obviously points leading as a defenseman for them in the playoffs. So, I mean, that's always a crazy weapon to have. I mean, I couldn't pinpoint. If you said like what worries me the most, I can't pinpoint one thing. I just know that probably the safest thing for us is the goalkeeping
Yeah.
differential. But in terms of who's not out on the ice for them skating around, man, that they're just it's going to be trouble, I think. Which is why I think this series goes deep.
Look, as much as we've been focusing on the Avs, I mean, let's give the Lightning some credit as well. Kucherov, the team leader in points in the playoffs, you were just talking about him, 23 points with 7 goals, and then Steven Stamkos, the team leader with 9 goals. I mean, this guy's like 40 years old now. In regards to Kucherov and Stamkos, right, what is each player's biggest strength in your opinion?
Yes, I mean, like I kind of just touched on, Kucherov, like everyone loved the flashy play of the past couple of years. Like you want to see a guy who's they can look at, which I think like McDavid and MacKinnon have sort of taken the role on now of like, oh, look at this guy. Like he's clearly, like the best in the league. And I think he's still a top 5 player in the league. He's just doing it differently.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's because of those injuries or not, but the way that he plays is a lot more like grounded in reality. He's not going to try something super flashy, super risky if he knows that there's a higher probability of success, to make a cross-ice pass, rather than trying to take on, 2 guys and dip something in that's just would be a Sports Center top 10 play, but is not as likely there to happen. As far as Stamkos, I mean, he's just like the clear leader of the team. He's like that guy. I mean, every team probably has this, so it's not anything super special. But in a situation like, say, when we went down 2-0 to the Rangers, Game 3 looked rough in the beginning, and Stamkos is that guy that you can kind of just, like if a player is getting a little nervous, he can just look at him, and Stamkos is just going to give him like a very casual head nod, like, hey, stick to the plan. Like, we're going to win this. And almost instantly, like something across the entire like aura of that player is like, oh yeah, okay, stay calm, remain calm. We got this. So yeah, to have a leader like that, and then still have the elite presence of someone like Kucherov, is a great pairing to have. And then Stamkos has that slap shot as well. Him and Ovi, I think, are 2 of the best slap shotters in the game. And he knows the time to pick them, and when to pass it off. So I think we'll definitely see a few of those types of goals where he just sort of casually slides out onto the left wing and snipes some goals for us. That's been a pretty common sighting this year.
It has. Don't remind me. I saw enough of that in the Rangers series. He gave Lafreniere the work in that
that fight
crawl. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that was surprising. He's not much of a fight. I think they said that was his first playoff fight ever. So
really, it's like old school versus new school right there. When you lose a guy like Brayden Point, other players need to step up. And 3 players that come into mind in particular, good point scorers and physical players in Andrei Palat, Alex Killorn, and Mikhail Sergachev, who you mentioned, are among the core that have made up this run of excellence. And you could also toss in my favorite NHL player, former Ranger Ryan McDonough, on the defensive side. I mean, talk about Palat, Killorn, and Sergachev, what they've meant to this run, and do you expect Brayden Point to play in this series?
Yeah, that's one of the. I mean, I like I said earlier, I called Colorado really deep. We don't have as big a name of guys, I guess, or maybe the rest of the NHL would consider guys like Killorn and maybe not so much Palat, but I think Killorn is probably a household name at this point. Yeah, they've kind of been like quiet killers. I think teams in the past 2 cups knew of what Killorn could do. Palat, probably not as much. He's sort of come up very quickly in the last couple of years to be one of the most important pieces of this team. So obviously you'd want a guy like Point back, but they've been filling the shoes very nicely. I think Sergachev of the 3 is probably the most mistake prone. Obviously, as a defenseman, you're probably going to make more mistakes when you got guys flying at you, as opposed to people on the offense. But I think he's probably the bigger. Mm, I don't want to say like threat to our success, but like I said, those mistakes, can put you in a bad place. So I'd expect him to be, the most sketchy of the three, I guess is what I'll say. I have a hard time calling him, mistake prone, but he does make mistakes more often than I think a lot of people would like. Um, yeah, Plot has been phenomenal, especially this year. Um, do we get Point back? I think so, yeah. If not, though, I guess it kind of cancels out the fact that the Avs have lost Kadri, so you can't really complain or moan about something like that if we don't get him back. But I think I almost think that they should keep him out for the first two games. The team has meshed pretty well without him, so I'd like to see how that goes on. If they steal, say game one, I think that puts the onus on the team to maybe keep him rested, because if the guys can get it done, you might as well give him that extra week of rest. He's been skating around for almost like three weeks now, 2 or 3 weeks. So he wants to get back out on the ice, I'm sure. This is hockey. This isn't the NBA where guys roll around after they get, take a brush of a hand.
Right.
I'm pretty sure if we didn't have, the medical team there, those guys would sneak out onto the ice, even if they had like just broken their arm or something. Hockey guys are some of the toughest in the business. So I expect he wants to be out there. But I think the team's obviously going to make, the smart decision for him, for the team, and, for his future. Obviously, you don't want to send him out there too early. But obviously, it would be super nice to get him back at some point.
It would be super nice. But as you mentioned, I wouldn't be too overly concerned if you're without him for at least the first two games, because all you really have to do is take one, right? So in that regard, it would make sense to sit him until game three. But Brian, a couple fun facts here before we get into our prediction,
Okay.
courtesy of my buddy Hank. So Cory Perry, as you know, played for the Habs last year against the Lightning in the Cup Final and lost. He also played for the Stars in 2020 in the Cup Final and lost to the Lightning. So he's lost to the Lightning in the finals back-to-back years. Now he's on the Lightning trying to pull off a Marian Hossa or something here. Cory Perry, old head. I mean,
Hey, if you can't beat him, join him.
right.
Is the saying. So, I mean, listen, when you get guys like that, especially at trade deadlines,
Mhm.
it's a great convenience to have. Once you win that cup, once you win back-to-back cups, it makes it a lot easier to pull off those trades.
Yeah.
For a guy like Perry, because if the core pieces are all still there and they're expected to make a deep run, obviously guys are going to give up a little bit of salary for a chance to have a cup.
Right.
That is, the grand prize. It's the pinnacle of hockey. So yeah, it's been great for us to win. I mean, that sounds so stupid, but it's been great that we've won, because it makes trades like this easier to keep the train rolling, I guess.
Right. Now, you talk about the salary cap era. To the fact that you guys have a chance to do this 3 times in a row really speaks volumes to your head coach, John Cooper, the coaching staff, the training staff, the team, the front office, everybody who's done an outstanding job. And there's one other thing I wanted to mention. Pat Maroon attempting for his – I mean, you guys are attempting for back-to-back-to-back. Pat Maroon is attempting for back-to-back-to-back-to-back. This would be his fourth straight cup. Remember, he was a member of the 2019 St. Louis Blues. Talk about his physicality and how John Cooper has utilized him.
Yeah, we like to call him Fat Pat down here. He is by no means actually fat, but yeah, he's a behemoth. He's 6'3", 240 pounds, just a complete animal in the offensive zone, holding pucks in there. My favorite thing about him is maybe not even so much the physicality itself, but the way he goes about it. I think I don't think it was game one. I want to say this was someone. Hank will probably correct me, I'm sure, in the comments of the video after this goes up if I'm wrong. But I think the last game of the regular season, we played Toronto, and the rankings, the standings were all pretty much set in stone, so it didn't really matter much. But we were beaten down on the Leafs, and all game, because we knew we were going to play them in the first round. All game long, Pat Maroon was chirping and chirping and chirping. Very specifically, I think he was going after Spezza and Tavares, and also Wayne Simmons. That was his like fighting buddy, but he kept going after Tavares. And there was a point where they cut to the, I guess we'll call him on ice announcer, that's between the two benches. And this girl could not get a word in because Pat was letting every line that came off slide down the bench so that he could stay on the end and just keep yelling and yelling at Tavares. And she was trying to talk, and for a good 5 minutes of ice time, he just would not stop, and you could barely hear her over Pat Maroon yelling at them. It was one of the funniest things I've ever seen. I mean, he's the type of guy, he's going to go out there, he's going to make the hits, and while he's got you against the board, he's going to be laughing in your face, almost maniacally.
Yeah.
What I joke about with people down here, if he wasn't a hockey player, I think he would be a serial killer. It's just, he's got this crazy mentality, in a good way. He's not like a Marchand. Marchand wishes he was Pat Maroon's level of shithousery, I guess we'll call it. Yeah, he's one of the funniest players on the team. He's always there to get stuck in, put his body on the line, and it's been great to have. If he can get 4 in a row, I mean, obviously Islanders got their 4 in a row back in the 80s, but to do it with different teams like he's done, I mean, that's got to be one of the best accomplishments in NHL history for a guy like that to go and get 4 championships back to back to back to back. So I think most people would be super happy for him because he's been a great presence on the team since coming here.
Fat Pat. I like that a lot, Brian. Let's get into our predictions now, and I'll let you go first as the Lightning fan. Just talking to my buddies the whole week. A lot of people like the Avs. Hank likes the Avs. He has them winning in 7. But I want to hear what you think first. Who do you got?
Yeah, so I mean, like I said earlier, this is going to be almost a gem of a series if you're a hockey fan. I think the heart rates of both the fans of both teams are going to be high all series long because this could be a very hectic series. But as a neutral, I mean, this is a dream matchup. This is probably the best matchup some people were saying in the last 2 decades in a Stanley Cup Final. These teams are 1A and 1B. Now, whoever's out there can rank them in whichever of those spots you think is appropriate. Sort of old blood versus new blood.
Yeah.
But the level of talent out there is going to be insane in the series. They beat us twice in the regular season. Both were only by 1 goal. One of those went to a shootout. So, I mean, these teams are very, very close. But I don't think I could ever go against my guys here. Like I said, I think one of the most important factors that we talked about earlier is the fact that, the nervousness, the jitters, is going to be there's going to be a gulf in the difference between Colorado and Tampa Bay because we've been here the last 2 years in a row, and it takes a weight off your shoulders as a player to have that experience in the bag. So I do think that helps us. If we steal 1 early, that would be nice. But I think even if we go down 2 games, they have the home ice advantage. So that's sort of how it's supposed to go. If we went down 2 games, I think we would still be pretty fine. It would be very, very tough, obviously. But on the opposite end of the spectrum, I think if Colorado, say, were to go down 2 games at any point in the series, I don't see a way that they come back because of what I just talked about. I think the nerves set in. This project for them is, I mean, it seems, only since 2017, 5 years, but it could be on, the way to its finale. So if they don't get it done this year, I think a lot of these guys know there's not many more opportunities. MacKinnon's contract runs out next year. He's unrestricted. So, if they don't get it done, what's his thoughts going to be, next year? It could be their last chance with this core. I think McCarr's maybe a free agent this offseason.
I'd have to check. I know he's coming up as well. I don't know when.
They have another big name that's a free agent this summer. So, I mean, this is big for them. If they can't get it done, it's going to raise a lot of questions because you've got guys who are either going to look elsewhere for another challenge, or contract wise, like you said, we're in the salary cap era.
Right.
All these guys, MacKinnon's certainly going to want a massive contract. Top 2 player in the league for sure. So it's a lot of questions for them, and I think that's very different than what we're experiencing as a team, which is a little bit more calming since we've been here. So I know I've been saying 7 games all episode, but my prediction is going to be 6. I think it's going to be very similar to the Rangers series, but I think we take one in Colorado to spice it up. And maybe I'm being a little bit greedy here. As Lightning fan, I'm picking 6 because then we get to win it at home. So that's my justification for that.
Okay, I like the prediction. So I also have the Lightning winning this series. I think they've overcome the odds. Their road here has been insane. I'm actually rooting for them. I'm not going to be that salty fan that roots against the team just because they beat us. For me, you just say 2 words and you can't justify rooting for the Avs if you're a Rangers fan, in my opinion. Those 2 words are Ryan McDonagh. So hopefully one day when he makes the Hall of Fame, he goes half Rangers, half Lightning. That would be nice, even though he's had much more success in Tampa. But I have the Lightning winning in 7. And here's why, right? I think personally, without Brayden Point, the series is going to be a struggle to start. I think you split the first 2, and I think you split the 2 at home and go down 3-2. But I think the Lightning win the last 2 games. Games. Vasilevskiy goes into beast mode, and nobody's able to stop him. They win Game 7 in Colorado. Those fans go home awfully disappointed, and the Lightning are raising the Stanley Cup for the 3rd year in a row. Shout out John Cooper, by the way. I know we haven't mentioned him enough in this episode, but he's done a remarkable job with the team this year and the past several years as well. But Lightning in 7 is my prediction, Brian. So
I love it. And just to add on there really quick to the John Cooper love, also Julien Brisebois, our GM. He was just a super young gun, took over for Steve Yzerman, who was doing it all for us, and he was just kind of thrust into it. And he's pulled off some great moves. I mean, you talked about picking up Perry. So yeah, him and Cooper have done a phenomenal job from the standpoint of coach and GM.
Absolutely. Now, Brian, I want to thank you for joining. Any final thoughts here before we wrap this up? And also plug From the Stand Sports. Where can people find that? I know I'm a part of it, but you are the head honcho. I want you to be able to plug that, and because we might have some good stuff coming up in just a couple months from now.
Yeah, so you can follow us at From the Stands US on Twitter. Search for us From the Stands Sports on Facebook, YouTube, pretty much every other platform. No TikTok for us. But give us a follow. And then as a closing thought, as far as how the series might go, I think what we're going to see is a very helter-skelter, high-scoring first couple of games, and then it's going to even off. And like you said, I mean, Vasi in beast mode is almost always a certainty. So I think by game 3, we're going to clamp down. He's going to lock it down. And we see a surprisingly low-scoring couple of games towards the end of the series, which I think, like I said, most people probably won't expect just because of, the high-power offenses on both sides. We faced the Panthers, who were, like you said, won the President's Trophy and were the highest-scoring team, I think, of like the last decade or something. So we've gone through it. We swept them and only allowed 3 goals.
Yep.
from the Panthers, which, listen, I'm not going to be that optimistic. I don't think that's going to happen again, but we've been there, so I think that'll definitely help in this series.
Been there, done that. Brian, I couldn't thank you enough for your time. As always, chopping up here with me today, giving your insight on the series. Folks, as a neutral, I'm thrilled about this series. I am leaning Tampa Bay, but best of luck to both teams tonight as Game 1 begins. He's Brian McArdle. I'm Tom Scavetta saying so long. You've been watching our Stanley Cup Finals preview here on Review and Preview Sports.